Ho, ho, ho. How are you doing? Was that cheesy enough? I am the Santa of dad jokes. Uh, okay. I haven't done a live in a while, and I actually have not read this in a while. I am sort of falsely happy about it because I used to read this when we had Remy, our cat, and I hadn't read it for a while since he got sick. Because he was always my little Christmas buddy with the naughty Santa hat, trying to chase the little pom pom and howling along with me when I sang Christmas carols on my YouTube back in the day. So, in the spirit of reclaiming and just embracing silliness, I thought we would revisit The Vampire's Christmas, which was a story and poem I wrote, I think 2016, maybe earlier than that. It is absolutely based off of The Night Before Christmas, and of course, it has a goth vampire twist, because Naughty Santa. Settle in if you have some hot cocoa or a warm beverage of your choice. Sit back, allow the theater of your mind to indulge me as we proceed. The Vampire's Christmas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and along Bourbon Street, the vampire was searching for someone to eat. The shops were all quiet, having closed for the night, but the vampire was restless and hoped for a bite. The partying crowds had all cleared away, heading home to prepare for tomorrow's big day. The streets were now empty and nobody stirred. The vampire walked, whistling, but nobody heard. He stopped for a moment in the pale street lamp's glow, and the only thing sparkling was the light scrim of snow. When off in the distance a strange sound was heard. The vampire froze, listening, and breathed not a word. He thought he heard weeping, but he could not be sure, so he ran toward the sound. He took off in a blur. Far away in an alley, a girl sat and cried, huddled close to her mother, who recently had died. The vampire stepped softly, staying out of the light. In silence, he pondered the poor child's plight. The track marks were clear on the mother's thin arm. In a fit of despair, she had done herself harm. As he watched from the shadows, he felt mounting rage. The child was a bare 5 or 6 years of age. I might not be Christian, he thought in his head, but today is not the day to mourn someone who's dead. He paused but a second before he stepped near. The little girl jumped and looked up in fear. I know what this seems like, he said with a smile, but ruining your Christmas is just not my style. He bent to the child and held out his hand. This once. You can trust me. I'll help if I can. The look in his eyes made the child feel bold. She soon clutched his fingers, so pale and so cold. They walked through the streets toward Old Jackson Square. He thought he could leave her in the church that stood there. At St. Louis Cathedral, where they held midnight mass, the light flooded warmly through scenes of stained glass. The vampire's steps faltered the closer he got. He felt his skin prickle and sting and grow hot. A cross in the window shone forth with the light, and it took all his courage to not flee from the sight. You see those big doors there? He asked, cringing away. There's safety within, and a place you can stay. The little girl seized him, unmoving as stone. She wept, and she wondered, must I walk in alone? Reluctant to face what he knew did him harm, he nevertheless took the small girl by the arm. He moved slowly forward, though each step was a strain, and he struggled to hide from the girl all his pain. At the top of the steps, he reached out for the door, with his flesh nearly singeing and his fingers so sore. As he pulled the door open, they were both bathed in light, and the sounds of the hymns flooded out in the night. They stood in the threshold, the vampire and child, his face a rictus, hers sweet and mild. The priest at the altar stopped short in his prayer. He could hardly believe who he saw standing there. Years ago, as a boy, he had seen such a fright, wandering the French Quarter alone in the night. He had been drawn by the sound of a poor woman's screams, and the face of the vampire had since haunted his dreams. Now that same monster stood unchanged by the years, with a girl in his clutches and his face streaked with tears. The fiend stared at the priest with his eyes glowing red. Then he pushed the girl forward, and in an instant he fled. His good deed accomplished, through the dark streets he ran, and he tried to ignore the harsh burns on his hand. His courage had cost him. The thirst raged like a storm, and he thought to himself, "Hope the mother's still warm." Of course, now I see this told through the eyes of Astarion, if you are familiar with Baldur's Gate. So that's an extra level of meta geekiness for me.
Yay!
That is the Vampire's Christmas. First time in a couple of years. And whatever you celebrate, whether you are in a part of the globe where it is really cold or really warm or somewhere in between, take a little time for yourself. Take a little time for the people you cherish. Hang on as the year turns from 2024 to 2025. And who knows what is in store for us next.
But we're all still alive.
But we're all still alive. Thank you, my wife. And with that, I bid you adieu, although before I go, I must confess, as my wife has pointed out, my costume is not complete from top to toe, unless I let you all now to know these keep my little hoofy woofies warm. Much to the terror of the cats. Rhea is certain that they are chasing her.
They do look mighty fierce.
Anyway, have fun. Have a good night.